Hello, my friend. Welcome to my channel. And on here, I talk about all sorts of creepy and slightly offsetting and unsettling things. But there's a line here, so we don't cross the line. We have parameters around here. So, in regards to the series that I am on right now, it is talking about urban legends and folklores. Today, I'll be talking about something that you may have heard something similar about, but it does have some differences that make it extra deceiving. So make sure that you don't jump to conclusion, okay? Because there are secrets within this very specific creature. And today's creature is the Kushtaka. Now, the Kushtaka is indeed classified as a shapeshifter, but it is not the same as a skinwalker. They are both classified as shapeshifters, but their appearance and how they also seek out victims are slightly different, and also what they do once they get their victims is different. With the Kushtaka, it can transform itself into a human. Now, it is a demon, so when it transforms itself into a human, it does look really off-putting and just not quite right in that uncanny valley type section. But something that it also transforms itself into, which is notably known for, is turning itself into an otter. An otter is not very scary, but here's the thing. In regards to it being an otter, when we think of an otter, again, we don't think that it's scary. We don't think that it's anything to be concerned about. We don't look at an otter and have fear. If you do have fear over an otter, it might be a phobia, because it's not normal. And that's where the deceiving part of this creature can really come in, because it looks very welcoming, it looks very kind, it looks like something that you shouldn't be afraid of, but at the same time, it's the complete opposite. It may come off very harmless, but it is one of the most harmful things that you could come across. And this, noted with how it typically gets its victims, makes it even worse, because it specifically targets people who are vulnerable. So if you have somebody who's like in the wilderness, because that's usually where it roams, is in the wilderness or in bodies of water or the ocean, which is also where this otter-like appearance kind of derives from, it will specifically go for people who are hurt in those areas. And what it does is it makes it seem like it's there to help you. And here's the thing, if you're in pain and if you're hurt, if you are needing help, something that already looks very kind, very helpful, very loving, even cute, you are most likely going to trust it. And here's also the other thing. You may feel like something's off. It's the same feeling that you get when you see like an AI photo and it's supposed to be like a human. It makes you feel off. You're like, I know what a human looks like. I am one. But something about it just isn't quite right. And you have that feeling still. It's in your instincts. It's in your DNA. You're able to analyze and identify it. But at the same time, if someone's in a position where they're in pain, they need help, it's very easy to overlook that slight feeling of unease. So it's very easy to give it your trust, and it's specifically targeting people where it's going to be easy to gain their trust. And once it does that, if you are in the ocean, if you're in the wilderness, it will make it seem like it's going to help you. It's going to approach you in a way that is going to be of concern. And once you give it your trust, once you allow it to come close to you, it will pull you deeper into danger. So you the whole time are thinking it's taking you somewhere where it's going to help you. It's taking you somewhere closer to a hospital or the ER or where you can get further help. But completely unknowingly going deeper into danger and being in the hands of the same thing that will harm you at the end of the day. And once it does this, it will transform you into one of them. So it's really just a sick cycle. Now, there are other ways that it is known to also hunt down people or harm people. Again, if it's at sea, if there are sailors, it's kind of like, reminds me of a siren. If you don't know what a siren is, it's kind of like a mermaid, but evil. And it sings to pull people in. I'll make a whole different video about that. But that just kind of summarizes it as to why I think they are very similar in that way, because it will try to get sailors to trust it and get off of their boat and follow it into doom. So it has a couple different tactics of getting people. But again, everything is in deceit, and the biggest thing is it targeting people who are already in need and already in a vulnerable space. Now, with the Kushtaka, there are a couple things that you can do in order to protect yourself from one of these creatures. One is to use copper. This is the metal that will protect you. The next thing you may not want to use because it stinks, but it apparently does work, and that is using urine. Another thing is dogs. Dogs are very instinctual and they're very protective, and they can see things and hear things before you see them and before you hear them. So through having a dog, it will not only protect you, but it will also keep them away. And finally, using fire. I can't completely say why this is the best weapon of choice, but what I do know is that you can use it to protect yourself, but what it appears to me is that they don't like the light too much, and so that could also be a reason as to why it is so helpful. Now, this next thing that people tend to do in order to keep them away isn't necessarily like a tool, but more so of a method, and that is to stay in pairs. Like I mentioned before, the Kushtaka likes to target people who are already in need, already struggling, and very vulnerable. So if you have two people going out, it makes them much stronger and way less likely to end up coming across one of these creatures. Now that you know more about this creature, I will be reading a story about it. So buckle in, grab your popcorn, your hot chips, some hot cocoa, and get buckled in. I already said that, but you get the point. Now, this story is from this book called Freaky Folklore by Carman Carrion. Hope I said that right. So let's begin. There are many dangers in the Alaskan wilderness, and some people have been unfortunate enough to meet those dangers when they appear disguised as cute, furry animals. And I didn't mention this before, but yes, the creature does derive from Alaska and Canada, and specifically and especially British Columbia. Alright, let's continue. Mel had grown up in the Ketchikan, Alaska, but had moved away to explore the world once she was grown. As many stories go, she met the love of her life in another country, fell in love, and settled down far from Ketchikan. When tragedy struck and she lost the love of her life years later, she returned home to heal. The flight to Ketchikan seemed to take forever, but thankfully the drive afterwards was a short one. Within an hour of landing, she was in a rental car, bumping down the short dirt lane to her childhood home. It was almost dark, and Mel was lost in thought, reliving memories of her youth when something large darted out in front of the car. She hit the brakes and scanned the road, but whatever it was had vanished into the trees. As she put the car into drive, she thought she saw a pair of glowing yellow eyes watching her from the dark of the forest. It reminded her of the otters that played in the creek behind the house, but it was way too big to be an otter. She shrugged it off, figuring it would be a deer or something larger, and headed on down the road. Her brother's car was in the driveway, indicating that he was home. Bruce met her on the porch when her car pulled up, and she remembered she hadn't told him she was coming. I know we discussed it, but I didn't think you would really come, and without warning. The house is a mess. I could have picked you up at the airport, he said, as he stepped off the porch and gave her a big hug. I know, but I wanted to surprise you, and I don't care if the house is a mess, she said over his shoulder as he was squeezing the breath out of her. Bruce had to work, so she had the house to herself for the next few days. She looked at the pictures and spent a lot of time reminiscing, but eventually, her favorite place began to call to her, Ketchikan Creek. She threw on a jacket and some boots and headed down to the path behind the house. There was a slight dusting of snow on the ground, and as she walked, more snowflakes began to fall. Nostalgia washed over her as she felt like she was stepping back into time. She could hear the icy water lapping over the rocks as it rolled by, and she could hear the otters playing even before she saw them. As the creek came into view, she saw that there were two of them. She watched for a while, enjoying their shenanigans the same way she had when she was a kid. She watched until they eventually wandered off back into the forest. Mel turned and headed back towards the house. She hadn't gone far when she heard a chittering sound from behind her. She turned around to discover that the larger of the two otters was following her. He stopped when he saw that he had been spotted and stood on his hind legs, chirping. Mel smiled before she spoke to the little furry creature. "Why are you following me? I don't have any fish." She took a step towards him, and he dropped down on all 4 feet and began growling. She shook her head, giggling at the creature's rude behavior, and began to walk away. She could hear his tiny steps behind her as they made little crunching sounds in the snow. She was beginning to feel uneasy. Otter attacks were rare, but not unheard of. They usually had to be provoked, but all she had done was laugh at the little guy. Mel began to walk faster, hoping to lose him. It was weird because it sounded like the otter's footsteps were getting heavier with every step she took. She finally stopped again and glanced back. Instantly, she wished she hadn't. Standing there, upright, was a man that looked very much like an otter, but wasn't. And that is the story of the Kushtaka. Looking at this folklore or urban legend, I feel like there is something real that you can actually take away from this, and that is just because something appears to be safe, just because something appears to be friendly, appears to be kind, doesn't mean that it is. In this case, yes, we're talking about this animal or creature more so, but day to day, there are people who look friendly, they look kind, they look welcoming, they look like the type of person that you should trust. And sometimes you'll have that gut feeling like, something's off with this person, and I can't pinpoint what, and I can't pinpoint why, but I just feel something's off. And too often, you'll just ignore that feeling and be like, you know what, I must be tripping, everybody else loves this person, so should I. This person hasn't given me a reason as to why I shouldn't trust them, so I should just go ahead and trust them anyways. They appear to be friendly, so maybe this feeling that I'm having, maybe the feeling is wrong. Maybe they are what they say they are. They are who they say they are. They're like how they say they're like. And at the end, you're severely deceived because they were never that person. You had the gut feeling, or maybe you didn't even have a gut feeling, but you just instantly trusted them, and you didn't know why you trusted them, but it was because they appeared a certain way. They came to you a certain way. They presented themselves a certain way. So at the end of the story, don't just trust because it appears to be safe. Don't just trust because it appears to be friendly, to be trustworthy, to be something that you should go to. Just because of the fact that it looks safe, just because of the fact that it looks loving, and just because of the fact that it looks trustworthy, does not mean that it is. So question people, question situations, and listen to your gut feeling, because that's your instinct, and you want to trust it and investigate why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. And even if you don't know, it's better to look into it than to ignore it. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you did fall asleep during this video, I hope you sleep very well. Thank you for watching this far. Make sure to take care of yourself and consider subscribing. Thank you again, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.